I think we've got to persuade the general public at the same rate as the elected representatives. I don't think there's any magic bullet that's going to get through the common sense. The profession is waking up. NHMRC, our National Health and Medical Research Council, 19 years ago said it was urgent to have studies of total fluoride intake.
They did say that they were going to do that before the Fluoridated Queensland.
And that's just disappeared under the carpet.
That was
But there's
1991.
a few other things that have disappeared. The NHMRC have asked to actually have a look at kidney failure as regarding and kidneys, toxicity with fluoride, and that has disappeared off the line as well.
Yeah.
So when we start looking at what the people who are supposed to protect the people, which is the NHMRC and even the TGA, they have been very lax in their duty of care, I must say. And these things really have sort of slid through the floorboards.
What would you all say to these people in power that are supposed to be protecting us and don't want to look at the science, are ignoring the science, and instead are upholding agendas that seem to be not in the health vein? What would you say?
One would wonder, and I don't know, if they're paid by big business. One would wonder if they would fear for their job if they actually did the wrong thing. One would wonder if somebody had bucked the system, where would they go? And I do think that's the story, is that people are so heavily indebted in these big organisations to other people, to other organisations and to big industry, that I think it's just a merry-go-round in there. And I have no evidence of this, but this is my feeling.
Would you invite other professionals to join and perhaps sign the professionals' statement? And where can people go to actually sign this statement?
Well, actually, if you get on Paul Connor's fan website, that you can sign directly on there. That's the easiest way to do it, is to get on the fan, which is the fluoridation website from.
So it's fluoridealert.org.
Fluoridealert.org, that's the right one. And they can sign. And remember, there's nearly 4,000 doctors and professionals who have already signed, and many of them are well-known scientists worldwide. But if you actually do look at the science behind fluoride, it doesn't stack up to add it to the water. And that's why people sign this, the professionals.
There are hopeful signs in that the NHMRC has asked for the possibility of barring from important health policy decisions anyone with commercial connections. If you go right back decades ago, when Sir Arthur Amy's, the head of the dental faculty in Melbourne, and his co-worker, research assistant, Dr. P.R.N. Sutton, brought out a publication exposing the fallacies, the statistical fallacies, statistical bad reasoning, unscientific reasoning of the fluoridation case. He exposed that there were people concerned with fluoride toxins, waste products, favouring and sponsoring research into the effects on teeth, only teeth, mind you. That has never been thoroughly discussed by any medical school to my knowledge.
One of the things that's often lost in the argument that's really important, I think, is that only 1% of water is drunk. And so all of this wastage of water going to industry and domestic things, it's madness that is permeating in a toxic way the whole of the environment. They do this to where it's known not to be effective in 12-year-olds. It's not to make any difference in adults, and that's for sure. And yet they impose this poison upon us.
one of the issues, of course, that is always brought up is the fact that Europe have got rid of the fluoride out of the water, but that they use salt. Of course, I would like to be able to have that available here in Australia if they take it out of the water, because you have a choice. I mean, even if you put something in bread, if you put something in any other thing but the water, you have a choice of having it. But once you start putting things in the water, there is no choice. You can't change the water from the shop, you can't change the water where you work. Everything has fluoride in it once you have it in the water. Now, when we start talking about Europe as to how much they use it and the salt they use it, at least these people who do want fluoride can have it. The people who don't want fluoride don't have to have the salt. This is where choice comes in, and this is why most of the people who are very anti-fluoride would sort of say that this is their first problem, the fact that they weren't given a choice. We did an FOI, or a Freedom of Information, from the Queensland Government, and one of the things that we did find out is where they said that most people wanted fluoride in, but when we did a Freedom of Information, we found out that they were very afraid of losing that any sort of election on the fluoride issue specifically. So that they thought that 50% would absolutely vote perhaps against the addition of fluoride. So, you know, there's always been that story, how much do you know? And this was at a time when people didn't really know very much about fluoride. If they went and they actually did another voting stage now, I would bet that you would find that most people would not vote for fluoride. If you were a doctor, if you were somebody who was interested in nutrition, and you had a look at the science, and you actually found that there were so many papers that you hadn't been told about, and so many people who had been harmed by this stuff, would you still continue giving fluoride? And would you still consider and continue promoting fluoride? I think perhaps you wouldn't.
The National Research Committee of America in 2006 published 500 research papers, 1,000 references indicating all the problems with fluoride to various tissues in the body. Politicians and bureaucrats have failed to look at those with an open mind. The benefits of fluoridation are minimal, if any, and the research supports that as well.
Well, the profession is waking up to the fallacies of fluoride promotion. It's rhetoric, not science. We need the health professionals, teachers and researchers to look at the things from the objective point of view and not to the political and rhetoric point of view.
At this point, John and Jean, as busy professionals, had to leave. We continued on with Doug. Just to remind viewers, Doug is both a former Australian Federal Minister for Health and a hospital and family doctor. He holds a Bachelor of Medicine and Surgery and a Bachelor of Science from the University of Sydney. Doug, if you could send a direct message right now to other health and scientific professionals and politicians in Australia, what would you say to them?
And first of all is obey the scientific rules, not the PA, public promotion sort of rules that seem to rule governments and professional organisations when they start to talk about fluoride. Look for the money trail. Decades ago, it was the aluminium industry providing most of the fluoride waste, and they were the ones that were sponsoring surveys of public health. But they only did it for teeth. They ignored and they failed to investigate other organs of the body, the thyroid gland, the bones, and every other part of the body is affected.